Hey. Okay, and Deb is here too. There we go. Hi, Deb. All right, so if you are somewhere that you can journal, cool. If not, you'll go back when it works for you. So we just started talking about what a medicine wheel is. And I was sharing that in native teachings, a medicine wheel represents nature. It's a blueprint to nature. So within it, and as we go further, we'll see there are 4 seasons in the medicine wheel. There are 4 directions in a wheel: north, south, west, and east. And the teachings take us around this wheel in order for us to remember ourselves, in order for us to reclaim our connection to nature, reclaim our connection to ourself. When I think of medicine, I think about a cure, right? So what's the intention of medicine is to cure. I'm going to make this large and share this. The intention of medicine is to cleanse, to remove dis-ease from a person. So when we enter this medicine wheel, we are attempting to remove any dis-ease from our personal life. Okay, cool. We are relieving ourselves of our suffering. And so this blueprint becomes a way for us to have a narrative of our own journey through this planet. The medicine wheel is also really reflective of, I'm going to slide forward here to the mandala, which we see in a lot of places. And some of us may even have drawn mandalas at some point in life as little kids, or being on the phone, whether that's circle or squares, even little flowers like the seeds of life. So it's this replication over and over and over again of circular and what they call squaring the circle, these circular patterns, which, Carl Jung, who is a father of psychology and archetypal psychology, had an experience in his own life where he was, just drawing these circles and squaring them off, and wasn't really at the time understanding why, or really understanding, as my friend Chris says, why he was doing these things. But later on, it became very apparent to him through deeper work with archetypes that this was his attempt to reclaim himself whole. So I think that this is kind of cool, because this medicine wheel and this work, we'll go here. This medicine wheel and this work is a remembering of our ancestors, a remembering of ourselves. And as we remember, we are putting ourselves back, like literally remembering and integrating ourselves whole again. Integrity meaning to be whole, to integrate the outside and the inside. So as we move forward together, we'll come back to this on the wheel. As we move forward together, we're going to end up building what we are calling an anima medica. So somewhere on your next page in your journal, if you're writing along, include anima medica at the top. And the purpose of working through this soul medicine, and where we're starting with the snake medicine, is to create your own guide to personal healing, transcendence, and harmony. So, so many of us in this world right now, where we interact with social media and Western ideas and, just pressure of being a human, trying to get stuff done, moving very quickly, we lose our connection to ourselves. We often rely externally on others, and we've lost our ability to self-heal. And, I think that that's really important, that we're coming back into a time and space where we are remembering that we have that power, and that this is a birthright for us to reconnect with. So, in coming to this, it's going to be you and your interaction, and where you decide really what your interpretation of this medicine is, because as it works for you, just as it was shared with our elders once many, many, many years ago, this information came from the earth itself. So as you, being no separate from the earth, begin to interact deeper with yourself, you will begin to listen to what the earth is telling you that you specifically need to heal. So this will be to creating your own guide. All right, so here's the backstory. We're off a little bit by a few days. But last week, tomorrow will be a week ago, we entered into what is the south of the medicine wheel. This occurred when we found our way into the autumn equinox, and this is a really beautiful shift in nature. It's a time where when we think of autumn, and maybe you can feel it today wherever you are, and if you're listening along, you want to type in, like, are you feeling this? Do you see this? I think we're almost all of us are in New York or in the Northeast. We're all in the Northeast. So I know we're all experiencing this shift in nature and this shift in temperature. It was funny because on the 22nd, on the equinox, it seemed like that truly was the last day of summer. Doesn't always line up like that, but I think this year nature was right on time with the calibration of things. And maybe you felt over this past summer, this time leading up to where we are now in, I'm very much air quoting, space and time. Maybe you felt a pulling of energy or a shift of energy within yourself. So this might be something like feeling maybe a little chaotic, or like things were sort of falling in and out of place, like things were almost like tying up loose ends or letting go of the things that were no longer serving you. And this is this swirl of energy that is shifting along, that we were riding with the eclipse season that was coming in. So I just want to see if I can pull up. Let's see it here. So this eclipse season brought us here to a point where the earth is sort of in this tilt, this moving back and forth in energy. And then here we have the equinox, and we release. And with this move into equinox, which is an earth element, we come to a place where we also shift into Libra. So the sign of Libra being air. And with it, we have this Aries full moon that came 2 days after. So take a pause from looking here, and we'll just talk about what exactly that means, right? So moving into this space in the fall, it's all about letting go. What happens to the trees? What happens to the earth around us? I always find autumn to be this really interesting thing where maybe not so much right now, but it seems like we begin to drop leaves maybe one at a time. And it's this sort of noticeable but subtle shift all into the damp and the cold and the gray skies and the discoloring of the leaves. But then something really interesting happens a little bit later on into the season, and maybe we can all kind of be hyper attuned to it and vigilant to see if we notice it. I feel like every year I notice it on the news where all of a sudden people are like, fall is here. You walk out one day and the leaves that were hanging, the last leaves that were there, are gone. And I shared on Monday that my mom's house is in Virginia, and she lives on 3 acres backed up by a couple hundred acres of preserved land. And for whatever reason, the first few years that they were there, I always happened to be there during fall. And let me just tell you what it's like to rake 3 acres of leaves onto tarps and drag them. It's a lot of work. And, it's always interesting because it seemed like I would go and I would stay for maybe a week and there'd be a few leaves and then a few leaves, but all of a sudden one night everything would drop and it would be gone. And I think that that is an important observation to make in nature because this is creating a relationship with nature. And this is very much our own process of letting go of things. Um, in this way of like, we ask so many times for things to shift into our life, for more things to come into our life, for blessings, but in order for that to happen, we need to make space. We need to let things go. It's a painful part of being human, but it's also a birth and it's a beginning. So it's in this time when things look like they're gone and everything has left that is actually the beginning of the medicine wheel. It's the south. It's the letting go first. And we can see this too in the form of a seed. So when we think of fall, the things to think of and place, and if you have your journal, if you haven't already, you can take that image that I just had up on the screen and create your own medicine wheel direction. So you'll draw an X across your journal from edge to edge on the paper, and you'll have south, west to the left, north, and then east moving along. So in the south, we have the snake, we have the autumn, we have in the northern hemisphere, we have the seed, the earth element, and the seed that is there to crack wide open, right? So that violent, like letting go of the container, the letting go of the physical, of the what is, right? There's this definition of who we are, what we look like, how we appear in this world. The trees, like there's a definition of what a tree is supposed to look like. It must have foliage, but it actually doesn't need to. And we don't need to look a certain way. And a seed, if it stays like this, will never go anywhere. And not to be, a little crude, but you could even think of birth, like back in the 60s and 70s, like women's legs were held together when they weren't ready to give birth. Like you can't stay like this. We need to open in order to let something go, in order to evolve and to be reborn. So this is what the South is all about. It is the beginning of a cycle of transformation. And then also within itself, there is within the fall, that there's also the death, birth, transformation cycle. Okay, and the snake is where we see this. So just put that part on pause for a second and let's just talk about the energy that happened in order to bring us back in. Does that make sense, by the way, to everyone? Like, do you feel that about fall and letting go? And does that make sense that that's where we would start, by letting go?
Yes.
Cool. Thanks, Deb.
I didn't know you could hear me.
Yes. You can be muted too, and then unmute if you'd like when you want to chat.
Gotcha.
Okay. So we had this equinox, we walked in, and then we had Aries full moon. Let's just talk about what it means. Aries, the ram. So the Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. The zodiac is really important, and astrology is really important. Cosmology is really important because the origination of these teachings to me of the South American medicine wheel come from a place and a people who really understand the connection to the cosmos. When you're in Peru, when you're in the valley, when you're in dense foliage in the jungle, and you can see through those trees and all the way up to the moon, you can see our galaxy, you could see the Milky Way and the cosmos, and they knew this. They calibrated their life to this. All of Machu Picchu is calibrated to the 4 directions in the medicine wheel. We'll come back to that later, but just so this is important. So here we are, the first full moon in the autumnal equinox, and it is the first sign of the zodiac, the ram. Now, the ram has that energy of personal perseverance. It is determination to win. Sometimes they say like winning at all costs. Like it is that determination to get there. Yeah, like it's the I'm going to make it happen no matter what. Um, and you know, Chani Nicholas, who's one of my favorite astrologers, says that resistance is part of the release, and that's just like one of my favorite quotes that I've heard lately. Resistance is part of the release. And when you think about a snake, like the feeling of the skin being on the snake, and the snake is growing and expanding and moving out of this place, there's resistance there. It's the resistance of growth, of inner growth. If you're feeling something in your life, especially if you were feeling this again, like over the summer with all of these eclipses that we've had, this is the uplifting of energy, the recalibration, the literal shifting of poles. This is the resistance, your inner world and the environment around you looking to expand. There's going to be resistance. Think of how a seed presses out of the soil. There's resistance there. You have to push to get to the sunlight, to the star. So, here we have this, and then we have this beautiful energy that's so aligned with us. What better energy to move through resistance than the ram, to literally ram through and help us to achieve whatever our soul purpose is here. And I say soul purpose because, again, in astrology, I think of when I'm thinking of the South, I think of the South Node in astrology, which is the tail. So the karmic tail. And in astrology, we have a North and a South Node. The South Node represents our past, our karma that we came into this world with. So anything else that's been lingering that we need to direct our energy and our attention to. And then the North Node, this pulling up, this moving up of the self into what our present karma is. So it's that idea of shifting what we came in with. We have all these lessons to learn, and then we begin to move north into our true purpose, our North Node, our present karma, fulfilling our, which I would actually say is more of dharma, our purpose, rather than our karma, though there's a lot of gray area there. So that you can move in. And again, when we start to look at the medicine wheel, this is the direction of the medicine wheel. We start in the south, we move left to the west, and eventually up to the north. So we're in that direction where we're heading upward, the way that the tree moves upward, the way that the seed moves upward out of the ground. So that you have like a general lay of the land. Take that X where you have your medicine wheel layout. And so in the south, you have this snake. And I'm going to put this up also so you can copy and screen share this. Okay. And okay, so in the south, you have the snake. In Quechua, we call the snake Amaru. And we're going to talk about Sachamama. So Sachamama, also the snake, two-headed snake. We have the element of earth. And whatever else comes to mind here, again, this is your medica anima. This is your book of medicine for yourself. So the things that are coming up to you, might be a sign. Like if just something comes up intuitively, maybe a caterpillar or a chrysalis or something like that comes to mind here. Maybe there's another animal that immediately jumps out at you. At this point, we're moving forward into the future, so we're going to be calling in the animals and our power animals. But for basis of traditional archetypes, the archetype of the snake is in the south. In the west is the jaguar, or the puma in North America, but the jaguar. In Quechua, we call him Otorongo. You can see here on the slide, or I'll spell it if it's small. Otorongo is the jaguar. Also in the west, Grandmother Moon. She rules the west. The west is for emotional healing. We'll talk more about that when we move forward in December. The south is physical healing. Think of that physical snake, the physical seed, the cracking open of oneself, the shedding of the skin. And we move forward north. Siwarkenti is the hummingbird in the north. It's spelled Siwarkenti, ruled by the element of the air. And Siwarkenti in the north, we're working on our connection to our cosmos, our connection to our ancestors. This is like familial healing. This is our luminous energy field healing. So this is stuff that's like walking around in our aura, our auric field. And then in the east, we see like we come right back down in the medicine wheel, right? We go all the way up north and then we get to come around again. That's the best part of being a human. You get to revisit this over and over and over again for expansion. Snakes shed many times in their lives. So we end up back in the east with the eagle or the condor. Apuchin is the condor, or the eagle in North America. Here we have Father Sun.
You got
And the element of fire. Okay, so you have a general layout of the land here. You have a general layout of the land, and this is how we begin to move through the wheel. Okay, so here we have full moon, Aries, first, helping us get to our north, helping us to find our true north. This is a really great energy to have right away. Yet it's also in a full moon, so it's about letting go. It's also in the equinox, it's about letting go. So it's asking you, what do you need to let go of in order to accomplish your true north? So this might be something here of a journal prompt. And you don't need to know the answer yet. So what do you need to let go of to fulfill your soul path? You don't need to know the answer, just keep asking yourself the question and it'll appear. At the same time, we moved into Libra. Okay, so Libra is this beautiful sign. Libra is the air sign. And this is kind of cool to think about too, right? And we'll go back to this at another time, but just for now in your mind, when we think of the south and the fall is earth. The earth is like this container, this sphere, this womb space. And then within that, we have the three signs that are air, right? Libra. And then we move into Scorpio, water, and Sagittarius, fire. So that completes the four, again, like four directions. So it's kind of cool to see that these patterns go over and over and over again. So Libra is the woman, if you can remember the lady with the justice scales, right? Libra is all about finding equality for all. It's all about doing the right thing, about finding this justice. So thinking about that south node and north node, this is like, this energy says that you can take this opportunity to recalibrate, to tip the scales literally in your favor. You might have had all of this sort of south karma going on. What can you let go of to come back? I feel like the teacup dance, but what can you let go of to come back and to find yourself, to help you move forward there? So I kind of touched on this when I was talking about the earth, that the terrain, the soil, right? Madre Tierra, the mother soil, our sacred earth and land, is a womb space. It's a place for creation. So this is a time for your self-creation. In a sense, it's to go inward in order to expand that seed that snake, which, by the way, so we talked about this fun like fact. We talked about snakes when they're young. They, on average, tend to shed. They're not really shedding their skin, I guess, shedding a layer of their skin every 2 to 4 weeks. And as they become older, some of the older, larger snakes are shedding 2 to 4 times a year. But I think that that's a really cool observation. We actually had a ball python when I was younger. So it was fun to watch him grow, and he got very big. But it's just cool to think about, again, our timing: new moons, full moons for letting go, and the snake, and as he's going on a new and full moon schedule, and then maybe every full moon letting go. So these are patterns all throughout nature that are found, and we're no separate, right? So this womb space, Sachamama, the snake, where all of this comes from. So in even like, this is pre-Incan, this is Andean mythology, there is a story of Sachamama. Sachamama is a two-headed snake. She is literally, her name literally translates to mother of the forest or mother of the jungle. And she's said to be this gigantic eared boa that lives on the forest floor. And she's so large that all of the foliage of the forest grows on her back. And she's responsible for stormy energy, so lightning storms. And she's said to hypnotize her creatures as they come by. And that anyone who, so any of these animals who come by her just ends up walking onto her back. They're hypnotized and they're drawn into her land. So this representation of this primal part of us falling into this state of being like confined to the earth, right? Like the animals that are holding a different level of consciousness of a human being. So the animals are confined to the earth, they're hypnotized, they're brought into her place. And there's all this foliage growing off of her back, so she's hiding through this. And then when man or woman approaches Sachamama, it takes a heroic journey in order to see her and to escape the snake, to escape Sachamama. And I think that that's really important, because that is what it means to be in this south place of the medicine wheel. It is a hero's journey to be here. It's a warrior path. It's not easy to crack out of your shell or to break through or to let go or to shed skin. None of this is a in the flow feeling. It is where that resistance is part of the release. And I feel so much like that, that which we don't heal, we repeat. So either way, we're going around the medicine wheel and coming back. We have our opportunity to clear this place so that we can expand and grow out of our skin and become new again. And this time, or next time around, have a new opportunity, a new perception of consciousness, a new piece of karma to clear, a new way of evolving our soul path even deeper. Or we could revisit it, or we could, like a snake who does not let go of its skin. So like a snake, especially in the wild, if they don't shed properly, the skin grows over their eyes. So some snakes, they can't let the skin off. And also think about how the skin goes, right? It's like all in one, all at one time. Like those leaves that drop. It starts and it cracks like the leaves, but then eventually it all just drops at once. So we have that same, like we hold on to things, but then it needs to let go. Does this, just like while I'm talking, does this make sense, like in your own land? Yeah, in your own life and your own emotions. Cool. So if the snake doesn't let go of that, the layers of skin stay on the eye, and it becomes a film where the snake then becomes blinded. And in the natural, that might work in a tank in someone's home, but in the natural wild, a blind snake is a dead snake. And I think, again, that is very indicative of what we're doing in our lives. If we're not fully letting go of something, it's going to create a certain level of blindness to the world around us. We won't see the things that maybe don't have our soul path in mind, right? So, and I think that that's important. I know I've been there in my life, and I know so many people who I've worked with have been there. Like, if we don't fully let go of something, often then we're bringing people into our lives, or allowing people into our lives who are keeping us down. Like, and it can be very easy to point outwards and say, this person's holding me back, or this job is holding me back, or whatever it is, it's constricting us and making us feel that way. But truly, the opportunity to be human means that we have the power to let go of that. We have the choice. So it's a very physical journey, all of this. The shell, the skin, the snake. So it's that hero's path. It's that warrior who looks Sachamama in the eye and says, I can do this. And that's the one who goes past. That's how we move past the medicine wheel. Interestingly, when we think of the mythology of Sachamama, it's also said that Sachamama, because she has two heads, one head curves around and eats the tail, and the other head points upward towards the north. And again, I think that that really reflects where nature naturally pulls us, right? So this renewal of the self, the literal like eating of the self, devouring the things that are in our path. The ram, right? You devour everything in your path, get you there, let go of anything else, devour your way there, and you're going to come right back around. And the other head is pointing north and bringing you towards your soul path. So we'll touch on also, like, through this, what makes us come here in the first place. Why do we exist? Like, so maybe we can all just share, like, you could just type it in, or you could unmute yourself and pop in for a second and share why you think maybe you as a person, or we exist as humanity as a whole. Yeah.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sure. Okay.
I don't know. I guess like through the last couple of years, the first time I ever started thinking about why we were here, I was in 7th grade, and I was sitting at a traffic light with my mom outside my high school that I was going to be attending, and just like watching the lights change was like the first thing in my brain where it was like, whoa, like somebody literally figured out how to put metal and plastic into this pattern which keeps people from crashing into each other. So that's like a simple solution to a simple problem. And it's like kind of the way we work is like we're always finding little solutions to little problems, or big solutions to big problems. And then sometimes things that are problems in our head aren't really problems, but we make them problems because of the way that our kind of like our soul is interacted with our body. We have that like the natural like that the egoic like survival mechanisms, which I think, at least with my personal experience and how I've kind of moved forward throughout life, is like constantly thinking about what to avoid so you survive. But it's like if you can twist that around to totally focus on what you want, then you are automatically doing that. You're automatically taking steps toward what you want. So you're automatically surviving if you like keep the focus positive. And it's like it's been an interesting inward journey of making that be the focus over the last few years. And then even this last year, being like the most difficult, having, lost members of our group that we thought were going to be like our family members forever. But also seeing the support that we have from everyone that's been like around us. It was just a necessary thing. And especially from the last few months, like the timing of all this is like really amazing, at least for me personally. But as opposed, or coming back to why I think I'm here, it's like, it's one of those things where if anybody has ever seen Spirit Science and you go back to like the flower of life and the creation patterns, it's like consciousness was there, and it's this is kind of just like how I personally feel about it, expanding itself, then going to the edge and expanding itself again, because what are we capable of? And it's like, I don't think that nothing can come from nothing. And I really feel like this whole thing is like not necessarily a challenge or a game or anything like that, but just like it's live and let live, and it's be and let be, and it's love and let love, and it's create and let create, and what will we create, kind of thing. Like, and then it all comes back to none of it existing without love and without presence and consciousness and like recognition of ourselves and others, and like, you know, so that, I guess, like, in short, it's like, what are we capable of?
Yeah.
Capable of amazing things. We've also learned that we're capable of pretty terrible things as a race, and like, and it's pretty interesting. I had missed the class because I was working for this company and we were in dinner and it lasted late, but I went that night and we were in Rhode Island right on the ocean, and I wrote down 9 things that I was going to release, and it's all negative feelings toward these previous people. And it was the first time since New Year's that I've actually felt like I was finally had let it go, and like I was standing in the ocean up to my knees, and I just like had this thought, and it was, we don't know any better how to feel good except for what we've been shown and how we perceive.
Mm.
And it justified everybody's actions to me in a way that all they were doing were trying to feel good. Even the one member who was doing negative things on purpose to try to bring us down, it's the only way he knew how to feel good.
Sure.
And at that point, it like everything just like, I was like, okay, all right, like, so it's like, but if we have other people feel good, that automatically makes me feel good. So it's like, it's one of those things, like capability. How many, like, I really think that there's like this, the balance mechanism of everything. Can we make it unbalanced in a positive direction? Can we make there be way more positivity and love than anger and hate? And I think it's absolutely possible. And it's one of the, and I am an Aries, I'm an Aries, so it's like, that's kind of been, and I've really delved into this in the last couple of months, and I've learned a lot of stuff about how I act and how I move forward. And it's always like, I don't know, I don't have a stop button. I have like a rest for as long as I need to, and then wake up and go. Cool. Like, so like, yeah, it's, what are we capable of, and can we make it be way more positive than negative? I think it's already there. There absolutely is way more positive than negative, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we have to bring it to those spots where that need it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Expanding through that, like spreading love. Yeah. Bringing things back in a positive way. I think you touched on so much. Yeah. We're going to talk a lot about like the concept of duality through things, you know, this, like, we have so much negative with so much positive, where that comes from. Deb, were you trying to? Thanks, Brad. I really appreciate that. I love your ritual, by the way. Way cool. Were you trying? Did you want to say something, Deb?
Hear me?
What's that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. We can.
Oh, hi everyone. I'm Deborah, and I'm glad I was able to log in. I was having a little trouble, but right now, you know, I'm going through a very painful time in my life. My mother just passed on Saturday, and it's been you know, in and out of pain and grief and love and gratitude and all of these emotions that are just very intense. And I just feel so lucky to have had such a wonderful mother and to be on this path and be so connected, you know, finally to, you know, the universe, to Sachamama, to really feel the once, and to see I'm already receiving, you know, little messages, such a new, you know, on this path. And, you know, from doing a lot of work on myself and really, you know, purging and going in deep, you know, digging out and feeling all the pain and the sorrow and the happiness and the uncomfortableness and the fear, so much fear I've lived with for so long, you know, and my soul has been just knocking, wanting to like crack open, like my heart. I had, you know, so much to give, so much to say, you know, such gifts and, you know, just allowing for the space, you know, to understand the way that my brain, my patterns of thought, my ego wants to, you know, pull me back in. I am in, you know, a place of resistance right now. You know, I do feel the ram in me, you know, wanting to like, you know, break on through to the other side. But there's still resistance there. And, you know, that's something that, you know, I'm very aware of. And, you know, I return to my heart and I meditate and I breathe there and I try to just, you know, give it love. And, you know, for the first time in my life, I understand what that means, you know, just saying it's okay. Like I would tell my daughter, you know, if she was going through a hard time, you know, we're not taught to love and to, you know, care for ourselves in that way. And, it's great to be able to do that, you know, and just, you know, if now is not the right time, you know, my time will come, you know, and it's just the path that I'm on. And, you know, sometimes it's big steps. Sometimes they're all learning less. Great is that today I went down to my mother's room, and my father found all these beautiful letters that she left for. I can't. She was divine love, and now she continues to be that, and she gives me strength, you know. I how lucky, like I can't even understand, like this gift was my mother. Like she is the greatest gift, you know, so much that I can take, you know, from her and learn and to be, and just I can be, you know, a woman of service, a woman of honor and dignity and love and, you know, grace and perseverance. And, you know, she gives me great strength right now in everything because she never complained. You know, since 2013, she, you know, got lymphoma and then continued. You know, she never complained once. She walked and with a smile on her face, and it just gives me great strength right now to be in this place, and I don't know yet what my soul's path is, but it's going to be divine. So right now I'm just grateful for today.
Oh, thanks, Deb. Yeah, butterflies, thinking of you, Mom. Yeah, incredible that the equinox was her transition. Again, that reflection of the leaving of things, the letting things go, being a stepping into the new. None of us know what's beyond our human bodies. We have our beliefs or our sensations, and we'll talk a little bit, but it's a new space for people to enter into, a new birth for everyone, for her soul, for you, for your family. Yeah, and yes, your gift is divine, and it is so much of that. The big things. I think you guys said something very similar, Brad and Deb, of like it's big things and it's small things, like the macro and the micro. And sometimes it is these big, huge, energetic calibrations or recalibrations that happen, whether that's physical loss or like loss of a job or a spouse or whatever it might be. And then also like the little things, the baby steps that we take every day. And Deb, I know you mentioned like even our mindset, like where our mind is and our patterning. So like the small release of our patterning, the small, the big and the small, the big and the small. It's interesting because, and I know like, we've spoken a little bit about this, and Brad, you alluded to a little bit with like spirit science and this idea of consciousness and where we are in the beginning. And I'll just share this as my personal belief, and it overlaps with many things and is non-denominational, but I believe that in some space-time place, we are this infiniteness. I don't even know that we have a word for it. We're just infinite. And at some point, as we expand and expands, maybe it's this infinite whatever, something, and then infinite something. And as we do this, we gain consciousness. And we get to the edge of this consciousness where we're pure love, we're pure divinity. We don't have, it's just nothing or everything. And then how do we experience anything beyond that when we've reached the full edge of the multiverses? I'm not, full edge of it all. How do we go beyond that? The only way to move is just like our breath. You have to go back in, right? We go out as far as we possibly can. The only way to have a greater experience is to contract as small as we possibly can. And we do this every day just by breathing. We do it every day by having a heartbeat. This is what it means to be alive, right? We have a heartbeat. We have our breath. We have our brain waves. We have the waves, the electromagnetic field of our heart, not just our heartbeat, but the electromagnetic field that interacts with the environment around us. We're interacting with the pulse of the earth, in and out. So I think that this is the flow of life. This is the pattern of life, the expansion and contraction of things, because we can say that it is all these beautiful things that it encompasses, right? Like the all and then nothing, the all and then nothing, or as close to nothing as we could get, because, nothing can come from nothing, right, Brad? That, ultimately, whether it's for love or for sharing our gifts or for celebrating humanity or for uplifting fellow people or ourselves and learning that, ultimately it is for expansion. And it's just on a very biological, very scientific way of evolution that we've been able to observe. You know, when we think of like the first bacteria being here on this earth, being single-celled, and now to where we are as humans. Like there's an evolution and an ebb and a flow. And I think that we can see this in the medicine wheel, this expansion and contraction. It just happens to look like expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion. And so it's so that we can continue to evolve. Same thing with the snake, right? Expanding, contracting, the resistance, expanding, contracting, the seed, expanding, contracting. We see this even in our oceans, right? Which is ruled by the moon and the way that our planets happen to move around. We're all in like this magical floating thing. We seem to forget we're a rock, like hurling so fast through the universe. It's kind of mind-boggling that we're even in this scenario, um, in this time and place, and we have all these feelings, all of these interactions in between this. So I think that, you know, that is an all-encompassing part of, yes, all of those things for love and for helping others and for uplifting consciousness and for moving forward with humanity. And I think that that's also important to remember, like in our own path and in our own nature and our own healing. And we touched on this on Monday too, and I know like Deb and some of you guys have like been in other workshops, so it's a little redundant, but I'll keep repeating it because we all need to learn it all the time. That in the process of healing and in the process of this expansion, none of this can happen outwardly to another. So I know so many of us are empathic, right? We feel so much, we absorb so much. Whether or not we're fully understanding it, we're very much in tune with nature, or you wouldn't be. In one way or another, these sensations are there. So often we think that we can, or that it might be part of our purpose to heal others, and maybe part of our purpose is to help others, but healing others is impossible. It's just not something that is our birthright or our business. And again, that kind of goes back to the idea between this idea of soul medicine and earth medicine and working with the earth versus this Western medicine of imposing upon the person. And the comparison could be like, I could not, maybe because we have science, you can like force germinate seeds, but it's not the same. I could not force a snake to remove sheds of skin. Like it's not natural. It's not the way that it's meant to happen. And eventually that would be fruitless. And so the same is with people. Yes, you might need a doctor to set the cast, but ultimately it's the person's own body that is healing themselves. So in order for us to even have the tool to share, maybe I learned how to set a cast. It starts within ourselves. I'm just going to mute this up. There's like a noise. It starts within ourselves and our own healing. And that's always where it lands. We're always healing within ourselves. And in doing this, we're uplifting consciousness. We're uplifting the planet. We're giving other people permission to say, oh, that person is on that path and doing this. And maybe I could too. Maybe there's something to that. Right? At first, that's not always the case. But maybe after a little while, people start to observe and they see that you're clearing out some things, you feel a little softer in life, you feel a little more in the flow, and then maybe they want to do it, and then they see how you handle the things that make you go out of the flow, you know, as we move through this wheel. And we talked a little bit about cleansing, so I just want to share too that the natural pattern of life in general is this 4-step process. These again, the number 4 that appears, and we'll talk more about like numerology and things and where that comes about. But this, what Jung referred to as quaternity, is these 4 pieces, and he also referred to the mandala, which is very similar to this medicine wheel, as a process of formation, transformation, and the eternal mind's recreation. So again, all of this, like we're expanding, remembering ourselves, we're really remembering ourselves, contracting, remembering, contracting, integrity, back to self-wholeness, right? So we're working through this process. And through it, there's a 4-stage process, and it moves as purge, cleanse, heal, and transform. So right now we're in the purge. Not like the movie. I've never seen it, but it looks kind of freaky. Um, the purge, right? So the purge. And when we think of a purge, what do we think of? Thank you, Deb, for the visual, like the hurl that comes up. It goes in all directions, top, bottom. Like we're human, we're here. All of us do it. Or maybe not action verb, present tense, but have. And so this purge is a physical thing. Again, the South, very physical. The purge is this letting go of the self. It can even be something like this, like trembling. Like think of like the leaves, right? When you are afraid of something, when you're in darkness, like the seed, like maybe even the blind snake, when you're afraid, you're trembling. Think of what the leaves are doing. Like watch nature, observe nature, and all of the answers are there for us. We're just so not used to it because we're paying bills and dropping kids off and things like that. But this purge is what happens first, and we'll talk more about how it moves us through the wheel. Then we go into the cleanse, the emotional, the west, the waters, the crying, the cleanse. And it's not to say that this doesn't happen all in one place as well, just like we have the 3 signs inside the earth sign. Like there's the large and the small, the big steps and all the little steps on the way, the big steps and all the little steps. Then we heal. We move through, we heal, and then eventually we transform. The world changes shape. All of a sudden the summer comes, like it's transformation. The full bloom is here. Looks so different than the winter when we're barren. And then we move through it all over again. Summer comes to an end and we purge. Why? Because summer is full. It's completely full. Everything is out and in bloom. And the only way to go from there is to let everything go, make more space, clear. So I hope that, that is a little helpful in the cycle. I'm going to share one more thing really quick, and then we're going to wrap it up for time. I know we're a little over. If anyone has to go, there'll be a recording. So cool. So we talked about Sachamama, the 2-headed snake, this idea that we are constantly working our way back up. And it's really interesting to think of the mother of the jungle, this divine feminine, this womb space, working our way back up into this ethereal space, the consciousness of self. And we saw it before, and I'm going to screen share it now. Okay. So I just want to share where we've seen this before. In life. So at the top of our paper, when we started with our Anima Medica, our guide to ourself, which by the way, so this was completely inspired, just side note, of in herbalism, they create books called Materia Medica, and it's a reference journal to all of the healing plants and their constituents and, specific remedies. And, so in this, this is your soul reference book. What specifically for your soul is to help you heal. So we see this staff, which is sometimes called the staff of Hermes, and it's the caduceus, which interestingly is a snake, which sometimes in some pictures, it doesn't look very clearly in this picture that it's so, but in some pictures is one snake, 2 heads, or is representing, in this case, the 2 snakes as this masculine, feminine duality rising up. And when we think of the south being here, the west would be here, we would move forward. On a traditional caduceus, there are 7 points in which the snake intersects, which relates back to the 7 chakra system. And we will go much deeper into this as we move forward. But just so you see this little overview of where these patterns overlap in our lives and how this is reflective right now this is current in our medicine world, right? You see paramedic, they have this, an ambulance, a hospital. This is a symbol for medicine. So this work, this medicine wheel, this mandala of the self, this blueprint and roadmap to creating your own way back to yourself, to your healing, to your cure, is exactly whatever we've planned for it to be, exactly what we need it to be. And there's nobody outside of you that can make that any stronger than you can make for yourself. Again, they could set the bone, but you're here to heal yourself and ultimately to expand. And look at the size of the snake. We'll talk about what the wings mean and all these other things as we move into the other directions, but look at the size of the snake. It expands as it reaches the top. So just a really interesting way to move forward with this work and bringing it into your current life. Real quickly, we're going to go over, this is a booklet that you'll have for you for your homework. Not really homework, but rituals in your reference guides. So you already have one. If you don't have it, let me know. The first one that you have is a woman with a very pale yellow little snake in her hand, or a couple of them actually. An overview of Sachamama, what we talked about. So she's the mother spirit of the forest and her story. Here's just a basic blueprint for you to begin to lay out your roadmap. I would suggest that you have these 4, but then also just begin to build a page of the South, if that feels right for you, and start to work on those things, what that means for you, right? We have here the snake, but also the seed, the womb space, the soil. And then here's your ritual to work on before we meet again, which I believe is October 7th on a Sunday night. So your ritual is to find a tree, and preferably one that will shift throughout the season, so maybe not an evergreen. Although if that was really calling to you, go for that. Sit with the tree. Brad, I think you'll love this one. And this tree will be your teacher throughout the entire season. You're going to work with it, draw your tree, photograph it, observe it and its physical qualities. Listen for its emotional layers. Maybe it has song or prayer. Maybe it's got a story. Notice its environment. Notice how it interacts with its environment. Notice how it grows up, how it grows down, how it grows out. So notice its 4 directions, its place in time and space, proprioception, our awareness of time and space. And then you'll continue to reflect upon your guide. So I also have here, how can you express gratitude for your guide's wisdom? Gratitude is the highway back to the self, to God, to source. And so expressing gratitude for that. Here's a prayer that, again, non-denominational prayer, but a prayer, an offering, a blessing for the earth, and for through the language of Sachamama or of Amaru. And it's a really great mantra to have over this course of time together, in particular until this new moon that comes up in Libra. So you have until the 7th before we start shifting that energy. And here's just, you had this in the first one, a healing guide, a blank template if you'd like for yourself. So, wait, you talking to us, Brad?
Yeah, I was reading the prayer out loud to myself.
Oh, cool. Okay, sorry, I'll mute you. Cool. Yeah. So it's a really good thing to bring into your life. We'll end with a little meditation and a quick ritual. I know we're over, but if you have the time, I'll invite you to take one of the glasses of water. We'll touch really quickly on it, and then I'll make sure that this gets off to you guys. So Dr. Emoto, are you familiar with Dr. Emoto? Okay, cool. Tracy, are you? I don't know if you're there. If not, I'm just going to recap anyway for the replay. Okay, cool. So Dr. Emoto is a Japanese scientist who studied the consciousness of water, or basically proved the consciousness of water. His hypothesis was that water can be affected by the words that we speak, by the music that we listen to, by the feelings, since they're transmitted words that are leaving as an energetic vibration through our brain waves, through our heart waves. And so he created this experiment, and the short story of it is that he proved that water has consciousness. Things that are spoken to or affirmed or blessed come out in these beautiful fractals of patterns that look like incredible snowflakes, and they're complete, and they're fractalized, so each one is reflective of and symmetrical of the whole. And then the water molecules that were mistreated, that were played maybe like some harsh sounds and were spoken. I think in one of them he had played Hitler's speech. In another, he just shared really negative words and negative thoughts. Had come out in a very disfigured way. And then I think the most interesting part of his study was that the control, the third, he used a jar of rice and water initially, but the third, the one that was completely ignored, was the most disfigured of all. And actually, if you look at it in a comparison with cancer cell slides, they're very malformed in a sort of similar way. So it's interesting to think that, once we become aware of things, like we don't know what we don't know before this level of consciousness. But once we become aware of it, to ignore it is to harm ourselves, and to bless those pieces in us, even the ones that maybe are painful, to bless ourselves as an entirety, since we're made up of majority of water, more than half, that it's to really shift our consciousness and to alter our makeup. So on the moons, I really like to take a jar of water. I just use a mason jar here, and we can do a meditation together for this, since it's a full moon, to release. And this is kind of cool. I'll see if I could take a picture, because I use this jar on Monday, and I always use filtered water, and I always use clean jars. And there's like a little kind of like filmy funk going on the jar here. So it's interesting. Maybe it is actually being released in this way, in a very visible way. It definitely is being released. So for me, for my ritual, this is my offering back to the earth for my tree. This might feel right for you. It might feel right to use something else. But, the earth has the ability to take things and transform them. And this is something to release and to let go. And I think that in a very energetic way, it's a way to hold space for nature, for what nature is doing. And again, this just reflects the fact that we can't heal another, but to stand side by side with someone, healing ourselves and allowing the space for them to heal themselves, that's powerful, and that is medicine. And so that is what we are doing here with the earth, and that's how I view this, as working with the trees. Okay, so if you have your jar, great. If not, also great. You are a container and a vessel. And we'll just take a deep breath in together. And when you're ready, let your eyelids become heavy. And as you find your way closer into your inner verse, you'll match your environment with whatever you need to plug back in. So that might be letting your feet find their way to the floor, if that's possible. And if your feet are contained inside of shoes or something like that, you'll just spread your toes and ground as much as possible in all four corners of the feet. You'll allow the breath to just begin to expand more and more, just like that sphere of consciousness, finding its edge, and then letting go maybe forcing out one more drop of air, and then returning back to your edge. And just allow your breath to continue to expand. This time, as you exhale, put all of your focus onto your heart center. The breath continues to move, but your attention is surrounding your heart, widening with each breath, and then coming back to your heart. And as the air travels deeper, you'll allow the heart space to begin to travel downward through the solar plexus, breathing the air down, sending it through your body, through your feet, through your heels, through your shoes, through the floor, and into the core of the earth. And then breathing all the way back up through the soil, through the darkness, pressing into your skin, permeating your pores, and back up into your heart. You'll do that again, 2 more deep breaths just like that, letting all the air out, sending it down into the earth, letting all of the air in, back up to your heart, and letting it out. And you can allow the words to just melt through your body, allow them to travel through your breath. And in your mind, you'll listen in. I release anything that no longer serves me. I release anything that's blocking me from my soul path. I release guilt and blame and shame and judgment, anything that's been preventing me from expanding into my consciousness. I forgive what I've perceived in others to be pain. I forgive the restriction and the constriction in my life, for now I know that it is a place of growth. I forgive myself for my self-imposed judgment, for my expectations. I release the notion that growth has a time and that I must fulfill something at a certain time and way. I release the need to control. I release the need to know it all. I release the need to have something appear to be what it's not. And this way I trust the earth, I trust myself, I trust Sachamama, Amaru, Pachamama, all of the great guides who have come before me, all of my ancestors for living out this purpose and helping to remind me that the medicine is within myself. I welcome all of this spirit into my body. I embrace my fear, my shadow, my doubt, and I allow the darkness to be a place of seated growth, of learning, of renewal, of release, and growth. Take a full deep breath in. Let all of the air back out. This time, breathe all the way up past the heart, through the throat, into the third eye. Allow it to pool through the skull. And then it returns straight back down into the earth. Finding places to clear the body as the air returns back up, moving through the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, bending underneath the crown of the skull, and then returning back down into the earth. One more time. Leaving everything behind. And this time breathing all the way up to the top and holding your expansion to its fullest capacity. Sucking up one more drop of air, maybe even one more, and then opening your mouth and letting everything out. And when you're ready, your breath can return back to normal. And eyes can begin to flicker open. And you can repeat this process at home if you'd like, in your own way, working with your water, working with your breath, leaving it all behind. I will be pouring this more and more over the next 2 weeks. And then we will meet again October 7th in the evening. So just quick check-in with you guys. How you feeling?
Really good. Really
Cool.
good.
Cool. That was lovely, says Tracy. Cool. Cool. Is this
Thank
something you can bring into life easily?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Okay, cool. So just to recap, that's a lot we went over. We did also on Monday a little bit. It's a lot to take in, and it's a lot of foundation and groundwork, but we'll keep moving through different aspects of this archetype of the snake, of the energies of the South, how we can embody this and bring it into our world, both in these beautiful rituals that we'll be working with and also in really practical ways. So consider today as like a big overview and like a scratching of the surface, and we'll dive deeper and deeper each week. So if it feels like you've known this all your life and it clicked, awesome. If it feels overwhelming, awesome. If it flows, then you're listening, because it is a lot. So I hope that it's a good thing to start to think about, and I hope that you enjoy your time with your guide, your arbor guide. You have so much to teach us. So